Podcast. Thank you for having me, Joe.
Hi, welcome to the podcast. I am Joe Posnanski, and with me is Michael Shore. Michael, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Joe.
You are welcome, and you are happy. I mean, I really am. There's a happiness in your voice.
Well, okay, so this has been a long time coming for many reasons. As many of you who have listened to this podcast for a while know, Alan Sepinwall, television critic and Yankee fan, has been banned from this podcast. For how long has the ban been in place? When did the actual ban come down? When did Roger Goodell, who is the commissioner of the podcast,
That's right.
When did he rule that Alan was banned? Do you remember offhand?
Yeah, so he was initially banned the first time that he was on the Christmas.
That was the initial infraction had nothing to do with the Yankees. The initial infraction is that we did a holiday draft.
That's right.
And the theme of the holiday draft was holiday movie characters. And it was being done in December, and everybody understood the assignment, as the kids say.
That's right.
The assignment was holiday movies, meaning December, Christmas, Hanukkah holiday movies.
That's right. Yeah.
And Alan snuck in through the back door and pulled some sneaky stuff and drafted Bill Murray's character from Groundhog Day.
Yes.
And Roger Goodell came down on him like a hammer and said, like, this is, you understood that technically you didn't violate the letter of the law, but you violated the spirit of the law.
That's right.
Banned from the podcast.
But interestingly,
that was the initial banning.
But that was the initial ban. But if you will remember, overturned almost immediately because he did not break the letter of the law. That was the ruling. The ruling was
some real New England Patriots kind of stuff. Like Goodell went in and he took the tape of the podcast and he smashed it under his foot and threw it away before anybody could review it. And so Sepinwall got away with one there.
And he was mad.
But basically what happened was, like, the league was put on notice that, like, this guy's shady. This guy's super shady.
Yes.
And so then Deflategate happens. So what was Deflategate? What was the second one?
Well, the second one was also at a holiday podcast where we were drafting holiday. Well, wait a minute. He ended up I remember him taking television shows.
Right. He took the Bugs Bunny.
Well, that was a different one. So yes, he also.
Oh, that's a different one. There have been three.
Yes, because that was in a regular draft where we were choosing sports movies, and he chose the Bugs Bunny baseball calling
thing.
That a movie when it is not a movie. But again, slipped out because technically he was able to go like the guy's got the best lawyers in the world. He's got the best lawyers in the world working for him, and he was able to technically get out of that one too. And then he came back and took a whole season of a television show to represent a holiday movie. Like, it was, I don't know, but
he's here. Sepinwall, what was it? You're shaking your head at us because you feel like we're getting the details wrong. What did you do?
I've been railroaded. I've been bamboozled. I've been hornswoggled. What happened was, in the most recent holiday draft, we were drafting holiday movies.
Yes.
And I was playing it straight. I was playing it by the letter and the spirit of the law.
Yes.
And Michael Shore, permanent guest host of the podcast, objected to my attempting to play by the letter and spirit of the law. And he goaded me and baited me until finally I had all I could stand, and I couldn't stand no more. And I drafted every holiday episode of The West Wing.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
Yes. And then then it was like a Lifetime Achievement Award, right? Then Goodell was like, Goodell saved Robert Kraft once. He saved Robert Kraft twice. That he couldn't save him a third time.
No.
And he was like, I'm sorry, this is it. You're banned for a year.
And you knew for sure, Mike, you did bait him. Look, we knew that it was right that Alan Sepinwall be banned from the podcast. You knew that. And
there may have been a light entrapment going on, like a smidge of entrapment. But the point is that Sepinwall
You should be ashamed of yourself, Michael.
Sepinwall was. Don't talk to me. Talk to Roger Goodell.
Yes, exactly.
So he was banned, and the ruling at the time was he is banned until the Yankees are eliminated from the playoffs.
That's right. That's right.
And so, jump forward. So Steppenwall has not been on the podcast since. We jump forward to the wild card game in October. The beloved and saintly Boston Red Sox against the evil
I'm sorry.
dark
What was
forces.
that?
The beloved and saintly Boston Red Sox playing the evil, diabolical New York Yankees in a one-game playoff. The Red Sox summon all of the forces of good and positivity in the universe.
Right.
They defeat the Yankees 6-2, and here we are. Welcome back, Alan Sepinwall. Your ban is lifted, and we've invited you on to talk about whatever you want to talk about. I mean, we can talk about anything.
It's true.
Anything that's going on out there in
anything-
television.
Yes, anything you would like to discuss, you're back on in full. You have full privileges again, right? I mean, I would say
Full privileges.
full
Carte
privileges.
blanche. We can talk about anything you want to talk about. I would like to start, however, by talking about the New York Yankees for about 45 to 60 minutes.
At which point we're going to turn this
At
off.
which point after that, you can talk about whatever you want to talk about.
but not on here because we won't.
No,
we'll be
well,
gone.
this will be over, but you can continue to talk about whatever you want to talk about after we're done with that first topic that I mentioned, the New York Yankees. So, welcome back. Congratulations on having your ban lifted. Let's talk about the Yankees.
I hate you both so much. So much. You are so insufferable. Mike, you have two teams in league championship series right now.
Correct.
Joe, your local team right now, are they up 2-0 in the National League Championship Series at the moment?
My local team.
Well, isn't Atlanta the closest major league team to you now?
That's a stretch. I mean, you go after Mike with his teams.
No, Mike is by
not
far
my
the
local
worst.
Team. No, that's not.
I'm just saying.
Classic
you guys,
Sepinwall, by the way, trying to pin the Atlanta Braves on you because of general proximity. This is
Yes.
a classic Sepinwall move. Oh, you live in Charlotte. You must be
Which is only 4 hours away from
you
Atlanta.
must be a Braves fan.
Yep.
Classic
Look.
Sepinwall. Unbelievable.
Classic. Alan,
You guys.
you know what, Alan? I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this in your behalf because I think this is true. I think you hated this Yankee season. I think this season was you did not like any part of this season, did you?
I mean, I liked when they won 13 games in a row or whatever it was. So the problem with this season is they were either the Murderers Row 1927 Yankees or they were the Stump Merrill Yankees.
That's right.
And sort of nothing in between. They either looked like the greatest team to ever lace up cleats or they were a clown show. And I didn't understand necessarily how it could go from one to the other from each game to the next. It was really baffling.
It's interesting. Mike has a very powerful theory about why the Yankees looked really, really good at times and looked really, really bad at times. And it is directly related to the fact that when they looked really, really good, they were playing terrible teams. That's basically the Mike theory. Is that right? I mean, I believe that's your theory.
Well, there's two parts of the theory, and they're both very scientific.
Yes.
They both involve a lot of advanced metrics
Research.
and research and analysis. The first is that 13-game or 14-game, whatever it was, winning streak, it started with games against the Marlins. They played the Orioles. I think they played the what are now officially the Guardians.
That's right.
They had that run. It was right after the trade, right before and then right after the trade deadline. So they pick up Rizzo and Gallo, and they go on this crazy run. And all of those teams were terrible, and they got hot at the right time. And Rizzo hit a couple home runs early, and Gallo hit one or two here and there in between his
5
90%
million
strikeout rate.
Yeah.
But there's a second, I think, even more advanced analysis and series of metrics that I've analyzed, and it has to do with the Yankees' ability to summon black magic and the dark arts when needed. And they, at various times this year, did that. They called upon the forces of Satan, and I would imagine held a number of sort of ancient, either Druidic or Celtic ceremonies where they slaughtered goats and drank the blood of the goats.
You
and
are
such.
such a phony, Michael Schur. Oh my God. Your team is like a couple of wins away from the World Series. They have won World Series. Like, they've dominated the Yankees in the 21st century. All of your angst about black Yankee magic is such nonsense. Such a relic of the before. Like, we talk about the before times before COVID. This is the before times. Like, all of this stuff you're complaining about has ceased to exist for so long, and you are still, using it as a cudgel to beat me with, and I do not appreciate it. because you have become all that you hate, and you just don't want to admit it.
I'm only reporting what I've read on Fangraphs and Baseball Prospectus.
Yes.
This is high level
This is
advanced
some of the-
sabermetric analysis.
Yeah.
Some of the top thinkers
okay.
in the game. This
All
is
right.
exactly. You know, Alan. I mean, this is what we're doing to you is so unfair because
Disagree.
This really stinks, guys.
It's so
It's total BS.
It's so unfair because your teams are terrible. Like they're just I mean, the Yankees are like, this is it, and that team is, I think, in complete seriousness, in a lot of trouble. And
Yep.
The Giants are horrendous, and well, not horrendous.
Yeah.
They're a little better than horrendous right now.
No, they're horrendous. Did you see the game yesterday, Joe? They're horrendous.
I did not see the game yesterday because, of course, I'm not going to watch the Giants play because they're horrendous. And
Yeah.
the Knicks, that's not. I mean, it's got better, and it's not really got better. So
They were the 4 seed. They were the 4 seed last year.
in the East, where nobody. I mean, like who?
The Knicks are the only hope for like New York sports fandom. That's how bad things have gotten right now.
That is bad.
I mean, I think they'll be pretty good this year and they'll be fun.
Yeah,
but,
they're
I mean,
fun.
they're definitely not like winning a title.
No, but
so-
they are fun. I mean, at least they're that. They're fun. The Yankees are kind of not fun, even when they're playing well.
No.
They're really not kind
Nope.
of fun at this moment, are they?
No, they're not. It's a lot of 3 true outcomes baseball, which, you guys have talked about is just not aesthetically as interesting, as when the ball's put in play. And it's just sort of like, they're not good defensively. They're not great at the fundamentals. So it's either Stanton and Judge are hitting the ball out of the ballpark and their bullpen is throwing, 99 miles an hour, or they're not doing those things and they lose. It's, it's not exciting.
Listen, Alan has levied some pretty serious accusations against me here, and I'd like to address them. if I
Please
might.
do.
Oh my God.
Please do. Please address them.
All right.
These accusations are 100% accurate. Everything I'm saying is unfair. It's deeply uncharming and unpleasant of me to be making these accusations.
Yes.
The Red Sox have beaten the Yankees in 8 out of the last 9 playoff games that they've played against each
Correct.
other. The Red Sox
Yeah.
have won 4 World Series titles since 2004. The Yankees have won 1. The Red Sox are currently even in their ALCS matchup against the Astros, and the Yankees are playing golf and getting COVID or whatever it is that they do in the offseason. And it is absurd of me. It is deeply absurd and unpleasant and frankly unbecoming of me to continue to berate Yankees fans
Yes.
for a number of infractions that are simply unwarranted. However, and this is a big
Oh, no.
however,
Oh, no.
however, you also have to understand that my childhood was irreparably damaged by the organization, and it's simply going to take me a while to expunge the bile and misery and hatred and darkness from my soul.
What is a
Now,
while?
what is this, 2021?
Yes.
So I would say by 2050,
Yes.
if the Yankees don't win anything significant until 2050,
Yes.
in 2050 I will be a very calm and angelic person who has no animosity at all towards New York or its fans. And so listen, but this is an admission. This is a straight up admission. I don't like myself when I feel this way. It's not fun for me, honestly, even though I'm giggling like a goon. I don't like the way it impacts friendships that I have with people and relationships I have with people. I understand the hypocrisy involved in rooting for a team with a $200 million payroll that is just as much of a bully in MLB as the Yankees are or have ever been, really. So all of your accusations are warranted and they hit a nerve. It's not going to make me stop doing this.
No.
I'm not going to stop doing this. And I just honestly, I'm saying I'm sorry. Like I'm genuinely sorry that I have to do this. But like, I'm like, what that little rant that I just went on, at the beginning, like that's the rant from, like, let's call it the 95 season, right? Now the 95 season is out of my soul, and I've smoothed that over. But we still have to get through 96. We have to get through 98 to 2000. We have to get to 2001. We still haven't nearly dealt with 2003. It's just going to take a while for me to get all of this bile and unpleasantness out of my soul. And I have just decided that I'm going to live in the absurd contradiction of rooting for a $200 million payroll bully team while criticizing and ascribing qualities to a different $200 million bully team that has nothing to do with my team. That's just where I am.
And is completely unsuccessful.
And is unsuccessful, or at least less successful in the 21st century than my team is. So I'm sorry. I genuinely am sorry. I don't like this quality about myself. It doesn't feel good. It feels absurd and hypocritical and terrible. And you're bearing the brunt of it because you happen to be the Yankee fan who's right in front of me at this moment.
All right, so here's my question for you, Mike. I've heard a rumor that you're writing a book about how to be a better person.
Have I mentioned that?
True?
I can't remember whether I've mentioned that or not.
How have you not mentioned that on this podcast?
I apologize. I should have mentioned this, Joe, to you before. Yes, I'm writing a book. It's called How to Be Perfect. It'll be at January 25th from Simon & Schuster.
How many chapters of How to Be Perfect are devoted to your just utter hypocrisy on the issue of rooting for the terrible Boston Red Sox?
Interestingly, none.
That is interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
That is.
I do. There is one Yankee reference in the book where I'm talking about Aristotle and running through Aristotle's philosophy, and I assert with very limited evidence that Aristotle actually wrote that the one area where there's a quality called mildness that is one of the virtues that Aristotle says we should seek, and it's basically being angry in the right amount toward the right people, toward people who deserve it at the right times. And I assert that the one exception that he has is for the New York Yankees and their fans. And I claim he says it's okay to direct an outsized amount of anger toward them, and also toward the Dallas Cowboys and their fans. And I mention in the book, don't try to look this up. You won't find it. It's in one of the very obscure texts that Aristotle. It's probably lost to history now, but he did say it.
Well, Alan, I mean, if Aristotle said it,
yeah,
I mean that's
some ancient Greek wisdom,
point.
I'm deeply skeptical about the veracity of this claim regarding Mr. Aristotle. There.
Interesting.
Well,
what?
Coming from someone who roots for the Red Sox and at least at one point rooted for the New England Patriots. So
Interesting. Well, now, why exactly would you doubt
what?
Mike's
Listen,
research?
wait a second. What have the New England Patriots ever done that is unethical? Name one thing. Name one thing. I dare you. You can't.
I can name 7 things. I don't know that I could limit it to just one.
That was the technicality I was hoping for, that you can't name one because you would have to name between 7 and 20.
I actually don't know, Mike. What is your, because it's a slightly shifting thing. What is your New England Patriot fandom at this moment? Because football is a questionable fandom. So
the entire sport is. I mean, so is baseball. Look, this is part. There's a whole chapter in this book I wrote. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I wrote a book.
Wait a minute. You wrote a book?
There's a whole chapter.
This is turning into like a bit from Memento now, guys.
There's a whole chapter in the book that's about separating the art from the artist, right? It's about how do you deal with say movies that were directed by a director who you find morally abhorrent, and among those fandoms obviously is sports fandom. And I won't get into the argument that I make, but it is probably the most frequent moral conundrum that people face, right? It's like it's because it's everywhere, like
right.
It's actors and directors and sports teams and whatever. And I don't talk about my own personal experience that much in that section, at least as it relates to sports. I talk about it as it relates to Woody Allen movies. He's the example that I chose.
That's why I would have thought of.
I will say that in sports, like specifically with the Patriots are this interesting combination, and this says more about the league than I think the team. But there's this interesting combination of, like, they definitely did incredibly shady stuff. They definitely did stuff that broke the spirit and letter of the law. And they also did a bunch of stuff that they got persecuted for that I think was kind of stupid and that they shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
And so if you're a Patriots fan, you're in this weird position. Look, some Patriots fans are like, those men are saints. How dare you? They did nothing wrong. Blah blah blah. Like those people have lost their minds, and it's just blind fandom. They can't see the forest for the trees, right? But there's this other weird middle ground where it's like, as Joe and I have talked about, Deflategate was incredibly stupid. That whole thing was so dumb. It was so ridiculous. And that was a makeup call for the real thing that they did, which was videotape their opponents' signals and study them, and then Goodell destroying the tapes, right? So there's no one way to approach this. There's no like, oh, this is how you do this when your team commits an infraction like this. And with the Patriots, it just became such a tonnage issue where there was like, God, one thing after the next, that eventually I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take all these happy memories that I have of my favorite sports team winning all of these incredible games and having the greatest quarterback to ever play the game and the 20 years of joy that they gave me. And I'm going to just keep these warm, happy. It's a little like somebody that you love who was a flawed person, like dying, and thinking after that person dies, like, this person was complicated. They did a lot of good things that I remember fondly and a lot of bad things. And now that this person is dead, I'm going to just make my peace with the bad things and keep the memories of the good things and move on with my life. So I don't watch Patriots games anymore at all. I think I've watched a half of a Patriots game so far in whatever it is, 6 games. I don't really care. When they lose, I don't feel a lot of pain. When they win, I don't feel a lot of joy. And I sort of just like, I'm sort of off. I'm not quite off the NFL entirely. I never have been. The drug is too powerful to give it up completely. But it's also, when you think about baseball, because just a reminder, why we're really here today is to talk about the Yankees.
Yes.
And so with baseball, you have it. There's an interesting thing where, like, you know, the Red Sox and Alex Cora were separately and then together accused of various infractions involving sign stealing, right? Cora was part of the Astros team that banged on trash cans and stuff. And then there was a thing with Apple Watches in Boston. And then like all the Yankee fans that I know started getting all up in my business when that happened. And then almost immediately there was like, well, the Yankees were also accused of sign stealing and Apple Watches and monitors and whatever. And so what ends up happening is you realize, like, if you're looking for moral guidance from sports franchises, you're in for a rude awakening, because none of these teams are particularly forthright. The Astros, not just with the sign stealing and the garbage cans, but a bunch of other stuff. That weird Cardinals scandal where that guy like broke into the computer and is now in like a federal prison. Like, you can't look for moral guidance in a sports franchise, or you're going to be in big trouble.
Well, Alan, what would you say let's break away from the Yankees for 1 second.
What?
Okay. I know. And
thank you, Joe.
Well, but I'm only going to talk about the Giants. It's not going to get any better for you. I mean, but what is your like passion level for the Giants in the NFL now compared to when you were younger?
Not that high. Not that high. It's one of these things where, like, the franchise is so terribly run, and like, Mike, I'm sure doesn't want to hear this, but like that second Super Bowl that the Giants won against the Patriots is like the worst thing that could have possibly happened to the Giants as a franchise, because it was like such a fluky year of a team that was kind of falling apart, and they won the game. But it convinced management and ownership that, like, the things they were doing that were not really working actually work. Yeah. And so, like, that's led to this last decade of just utter bumbling and ineptitude, you know, culminating in hiring Dave Gettleman, who thinks he's, like, managing a football team in the year 1982. And, like, by all accounts, John Mara is probably going to fire him, but then try to replace him with someone else from within, because he runs the team like a mom and pop shop. Yeah. So my team has been frustrating, and it's been obvious for years that they don't know what they're doing and they're not going to get out of it. So that has allowed me to sort of disentangle myself to a degree from football fandom and Giants fandom. And the fact that my son has not shown any interest whatsoever.
Interesting.
In spectator sports. He will watch basketball with me a little bit, and that's about it. Yeah. So that sort of has also made it easier, because I would rather be with him than, like, sitting in my room yelling at, like, you know, Joe Judge for being a dinosaur.
By the way,
And
a couple of points I want to make on that.
Yes.
First of all, if I became a GM, if any of us became a GM, like in the NFL, how tempting would it be to just run the team like it was 1982, like the glory days of general managers, right? Where you just like people say like, oh, why did you do this? Shut up! I don't have to tell you anything. I mean, just you get to be like completely separate.
I'm going to sign 4 blocking fullbacks to the roster because we need to establish the run game.
Just like the run.
Yeah.
Interior defensive linemen who don't rush the passer. That is where it's at, gentlemen.
That would
Like I think he has a fetish for them at this point. I don't think it's just.
I think that would be so fun. In all sports, I think it would be fun to just be able to, like, you would never get this job, but if you ever got this job, ignore literally everything that's happened in the last 25 years and just like completely go on your own. Like in baseball, just go, what this team needs is a manager that kicks some butt, and don't even worry about like your general manager comes up to you and says, hey, listen, the analytics say, yeah, shut up, get out of here with your stupid
just
analytics.
Like a running back that like his stats at the end of the game are like 38 carries for 101 yards.
Right.
Just
and you're like
two or 3 yards at a time. Just like that would be fun. That would be fun as a weird experiment.
But it is not fun to root for when your team does that, guys. It really is not.
Fair enough.
It's really bad.
This brings up another interesting point, which is the Red Sox had no business beating the Rays. We've talked about that already.
Yes.
The Rays were a better team. They had better pitchers. They had better hitters. They play better defense, and it's a complete fluke. And I texted this to Joe and Brandon McCarthy when the Red Sox won, and I said I feel genuinely bad for the Rays. Like the Rays had a $67 million payroll and were a better team, and they should have won. And if they had won, just imagine for a second that they had won, and imagine for a second that the Brewers hadn't just completely fallen apart offensively.
Yeah.
There was a scenario in which either Tampa Bay Tampa Bay could have potentially held 3 of the 4 major sports trophies at the same time. And Milwaukee could have held 2 of them. Like Milwaukee or Tampa Bay was fighting for the moniker of Titletown in America, right? Tampa Bay and Milwaukee. And it is interesting now, and I don't know whether this is a fluke or a trend, but it definitely feels like the traditional sports powerhouse cities are fading a little bit in favor of a sort of ad hoc committee of other cities that win titles now. Like, I mean, ultimately, like, look, you still have Los Angeles and Atlanta, and you still have Boston, and you still have Houston. Like the baseball right now, it's 4 pretty major cities, but you also have these cities that have multiple sports franchises that are doing really well in their respective sports, like Tampa Bay and Milwaukee.
Yep.
I don't know. What do we think? It's like New York is nowhere close, frankly, to winning a title in any major sport.
It's been disastrous for New York for a decade. I mean, which is the Giants.
12 years for the Yankees.
The Giants Super Bowl win is the last time any New York team has won a championship,
and haven't even come close. Chicago, really, other than the Cubs, that's been kind of a pretty much a disaster. There, the Bears have been.
Didn't the Blackhawks win one year?
I mean, they did, but I think it's been a while now. I mean, hockey years are like dog years. Like you'd think, like, oh, remember when Montreal just won? It's like, yeah, 30 years ago. I mean, everything moves a lot faster in hockey. I think it's been a while since the Blackhawks won, and I think they've that organization has kind of taken a pretty nasty turn. But you look at that. I mean, like New York and Chicago, and I mean that's pretty bad. And you're right. Like Tampa Bay is the weirdest one because like Tampa Bay is not a city, right? I mean, that's every so often I'll say that, and and people like no. I mean, it's sort of St. Petersburg and sort of Tampa and not really either one. And so it's like they just named it Tampa Bay and everybody agreed to it. And you don't even know which, town each team is in. I mean, it's really strange, actually.
And their baseball team is incredible. And
incredible.
So few people go to the games that now the owner is talking about playing half their games in Montreal
because their stadium is terrible, and
their stadium is like it's like sometimes when your kids are toddlers, you take them to birthday parties at like indoor play spaces where there's like there's like ball pits and they crawl. That's like what their stadium is. It's a giant toddler playhouse.
Yes.
Where like hey guys, just so you know, if you hit the ball too high, it'll hit the roof, and then it's a double. Like that is an absurdity that team plays in that stadium. And
but how much is it the stadium and how much is it the market? It feels like both the Florida teams, like the Marlins, have a nice stadium, and still people don't go, even in the years when they're good.
Yeah, but I mean those are two very, very different markets, Florida and Tampa, St. Pete. Look, the Tampa St. Pete thing, a lot of it is the stadium. Definitely. Not only is it a terrible stadium, not only is it a weird dome in Florida, which makes no sense, but it's also like in a terrible location for like a lot of people to try to get to. And so that's a part of it. But also it's like baseball never took off there ever. I mean, like that team has been good for a long time now. I mean, they go back. I don't know if you remember this. They were in the World Series before the Yankees won their last World Series.
I remember.
I know you do. So, but yeah, I mean, they've been good for a long time, and they're the best story in baseball, like every year, because I mean, what they're doing is utterly impossible. At the same time, though, let me throw this out to both of you, because I think this is something I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he was talking about how nobody cares about pitcher wins anymore, right? Like, and that's been a fight that we've had for a long time. Like, pitcher wins don't matter. It's not relevant. It sucks.
Wait, what? Who would argue this? That's insane. Jack,
you got to win the game. You got to win the game,
Yes.
Joe.
It's all about winning the game. But here's the point.
You play to win the game.
But
Joe.
here's the point he made, and I thought this was really interesting and reminds me of the Rays. He was like, it's like you won the battle that pitcher wins don't matter, but you lost the war because now starting pitching doesn't matter. It's like because in the old days, at least what pitcher wins did do is you starters went. They had to go 5 innings to even win the game, and then you wanted them to go even longer to like truly get a win, so that like your best pitchers had the most wins. Like that was a thing, and now that's not a thing at all. Nobody cares. I mean, yesterday they just pulled Scherzer in the 4th inning because it's like, of course they did. I mean, it's like he'd thrown enough pitches, and that was that. Nobody even thinks about the 5-inning thing to get a win. Nobody cares about that. And in some ways, I think the Rays are doing the same thing. It's like they are doing exactly what they should be doing. All of these things, the shifting and all of the advanced metrics and everything they're doing, the opener, all of this stuff, it's great for them. It's not good for baseball, I think. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a weird thing.
No, they've kind of broken the game, and there's also obviously, another thing that's probably plays at least a little bit into the attendance is like anytime they get a player who's good, they trade them immediately because like they can't afford to pay them.
Yeah.
So it becomes very hard to be loyal to that team for, however many baseball fans are in the market. But no, you guys have talked about this a lot. Like the things that a lot of teams, and the Rays in particular, have figured out to like maximize efficiency and analytics are great, and obviously if your sole goal is to win baseball games, you should be doing that. But aesthetically, it's terrible. A lot of it is just it's a less fun game to watch, and I hate like watching a baseball game and listening to the announcers just bemoan the ways that the game has changed, and it's less fun, but also the ways the game has changed is less fun. So
isn't it a little bit on, because I generally agree with this, but isn't it a little bit on us as the generation that experienced both the before times and the current times to just adjust and say like, well, yeah, this is like they found a better way to play.
Yeah. And
so they're playing that way, and we're lamenting the loss of something that, for example, my jerk son will never really know because he doesn't remember the days of Jack Morris going 10 innings against the in the World Series against the Braves. And so, and that doesn't mean that wasn't sort of more fun or more interesting or something. It very well could be, But it's just what baseball has become now. And you also have to think that if there's a guy who could, like, look, Scherzer asked out of the game last night after 4 innings because he said his arm wasn't feeling great.
Right.
And he has looked a little off.
Well, he's pitching on 2 days rest every other day.
Exactly.
I mean,
and he's been missing his spots. That relief, the relief win against the Giants, or save against the Giants, we were texting during that. It was like he was missing every spot.
Yeah,
like
he was.
He was not. It did not look like Max Scherzer. So maybe that's not a great data point. But the point is like, generally speaking, that guy throws 7 innings. Like when he pitches, when he's healthy, he does go 6 or 7 innings. And if there are guys who were that good, they'll let them pitch. Like it's usually like, hey, this is the third time through the lineup, and the team's hit 378 against this guy third time through the lineup, so we're pulling him.
Right.
It's like, how can you? It is true that it's sometimes you get these less aesthetically pleasing versions of baseball, but we are also in an era where Yuli Gurriel won the batting title and hit 7th for the Astros.
Right.
So these lineups up and down are so good that you just can't. It's just not worth it to have a guy pitching on fumes, having thrown 85 pitches through 5 innings.
Right.
It's just not worth it to have him pitch anymore.
Right. I'm not arguing any of that. All of that's true. And by the way, I still love the game. You still love the game. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is,
why do you hate baseball, Joe? This is what.
All right, you know what? It's time to start talking Yankees again. All right, I want all of it shifted toward Allen. No, but here's what I'm saying. In basketball, as an example, the Knicks, Allen's Knicks, which, here we go. Allen's Knicks sort of figured out that they could beat people up and win that way with really super low scoring games and really good defense and just very, very, very physical. And the NBA eventually, and this happened in the NHL too with the zone trap, eventually the NHL and the NBA said, no, this game sucks. This isn't good. This isn't good sport. This has happened in football repeatedly, again and again and again, where every time the game starts shifting to be not enough offense, too much defense, too many injuries, whatever the case may be, they change the rules and make the game more aesthetically. It's for the fans. We all know that. Baseball doesn't do that. And when they have done it, it's been very ham-handed. They've done very poor, made very poor decisions when it comes to that kind of stuff. And so that's what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is not, you're right. Look, you can't tomorrow just say, okay, from here on in, you have to go 7 innings if you're a starter. I don't care how badly you get beat up.
Yeah.
You can't do that, right? I mean, the game has shifted way too far over, and nobody's been trained for that, and the game is completely shifted. But what I'm saying is they've kind of let it get away from them, I think. And there are many things in the game, not just the pitching thing, but also the 3 outcomes. Also, Mike, you're a big fan, I think, of getting rid of the shift. Absolutely getting rid of it, which I don't fully agree with, but I agree with why you want that done. You want more hits. You want more balls in play. We want more. These days, watching these playoffs has been so instructive to me in the sense of you see a guy at second with nobody out. It doesn't matter. It's like, hey, the guy might hit a home run, but it's almost certainly not going to hit a single that's going to knock him in. It's like that. I mean, it does happen. It did happen a little bit in the Braves game yesterday, but it doesn't happen much. And you see a guy on third with 1 out, and you're like, all you need is a sac fly. Your odds aren't that great.
You don't get that sac fly. You
don't get that sac fly.
Yeah.
So no balls in play. Having 8 pitchers is absurd. That's way too far. You just can't have games where you just have 8 pitchers pitching 8 innings. I mean, that's ridiculous. And baseball has just kind of sat back. And I think every sport would. Every sport, if you just let the teams do anything they wanted to win, twisting, not in a bad way, but finding loopholes and twisting the rules to their advantage. If you get there, NBA games would be 67, 65. I mean, like that's where we would be, I think. And I think you have to I think baseball has to take a hand at some point in this game and try to, again, it's never going to be like what was when we were watching. And the stuff when we were watching isn't, in so many ways, the game is so much better now. I mean, you brought up a great point the other day, Mike, that I had not thought about, which is outfielders don't miss throws anymore.
No, it's wild. There is a play that used to happen all the time that never happens anymore. And it's basically a ball gets hit into the outfield and a guy's rounding third and the outfielder throws the ball home and the throw is so bad that the catcher has to run like 30 feet up the first baseline, or like he jumps up and the ball sails 50 feet over his head and hits the backstop. That doesn't happen anymore. No. Every outfielder in the majors runs and picks up a ball, spins like 195 degrees, and throws a 90-mile-an-hour perfect strike to the base, like that, where the infielder, whatever base he's throwing to, doesn't move an inch, and the ball comes right to him. It's really amazing. The accuracy of outfield arms is off the charts, and so like everybody talks about how bad the base running is. I think the base running is bad because they're not practicing base running anymore, because either they're jogging to first base after a walk or jogging home on a home run. But it's also true that like the first to third run on a single to right field is now, the idea is always make them make a perfect throw, and they're always making perfect throws. It's bananas. Like that has not been talked about nearly enough, I think. It's how good these guys have gotten at throwing from right field to third, from center field to home, like plays that used to be complete, like you don't even try it, don't even bother, just lob it into the cutoff guy. Those throws are being made and those guys are getting caught at home, and it's wild. As you mentioned, I'm a fan of banning the shift, or I'm a fan of setting up a rule that says